Good evening, everybody. It's evening here in Canton, Ohio. Getting pretty late in the evening. It's actually 10 p.m. Of course, is the start time for Eastern Standard Time. Porch lights on, so it looks pretty bright outside, but it really isn't. And here we are with another episode of the Saturday Spiritualist, where I talk about spiritual things, either spiritual movements or beliefs, or in as in today's episode, um, practical application, more or less. This is going to be kind of an introductory on this kind of stuff on tonight's topic, because there's a lot other deeper parts to it that we may get into as far as if you want to really pursue what we're getting into. And I should probably stop dancing around it and just mention what it is. We're going to be talking about rituals, and we're going to go into a little bit of background on it and a little bit of the theory about why maybe they work, and also in why people do them, and some real world examples of ritual behavior. So, what classifies as a ritual? It's basically a set of behaviors. How, James? That's okay. You know, we're always available on demand, so you can always watch it tomorrow or the day after or the day after or whatever. Just like them all. So, no big deal. Um, but rituals are a set of repeated actions that you memorize, essentially, and you stick to a formula. A good example of this, believe it or not, is if anyone has ever been part of a really orthodox church, like Catholicism, or anything like that, or even Islam has ritual behavior as well. Although I don't know if they would consider it that, but that's what it is. The Catholic Mass is a pretty elaborate ritual, where the priest speaks in Latin, makes certain movements. Everything goes this, then this, then this. There's always a set of things that you do all in order, no deviating from that order, start to finish, boom. And it's supposed to aid in causing divine things to happen. Muslims have this same sort of thing, but not like the Catholic Mass. They have the various calls to prayer throughout the day, where they have to turn to. Sorry, I got something in my nose today. No jokes. I got nothing like that in my nose. But Muslims have the call to prayer, which they do a certain number of times per day. I'm not entirely clear on the number, not being a Muslim myself. And they have to look towards Mecca, and they have to, but their head has to touch the ground, and things like that, and they have to say their prayers. So that's a ritual behavior. It's a repeated behavior that's meant to reinforce a belief or further reinforce more behavior. And a lot of people, when you say ritual stuff, they instantly think of the big satanic, like people up in robes and sacrifices and all this other kind of stuff, and Hollywood movie stuff. And you wouldn't be entirely wrong, because that became really popular, especially in left-hand path acts oriented groups, for a couple of reasons. Not only does it kind of help reinforce, again, a pattern of behavior in a memorization, but it also, what they would use it for, if you've read anything by Anton LaVey, of course, who founded the Church of Satan back in the 60s and 70s, he used to use those as a form of theater, as spectacle. He modeled them after the Catholic Mass because he had problems with Catholicism specifically, and he would put on these black mass rituals with the express intent to irritate and annoy people who were of Catholic belief, and draw in people who were interested in that kind of thing. So it was theatrical. It was something like trying to bring people in. These cats are going to fight in my window. We daily have our own kind of ritual behaviors, even though we might not consider them as such, and we use them to get our days going, or to keep ourselves in order, or for learning and things. Um, Back in school, where you had to do memorization kind of exercise, like if you had to do flashcards and things, that's ritual behavior. It's learning through repetition. Um, if you ever got in trouble, and if they did it in your school, they didn't often do it in my school anymore. Um, my schools weren't really into that kind of stuff anymore. But if you were in a school that did it like Simpsons style, where you got in trouble and then you had to write on the blackboard 50 times, "I will not throw paper airplanes in class," or something like that, 50 times. That's ritual behavior, because it's intended to instill a change in how you act. By saying 50 times and writing it out, "I will not do this in class," the theory was that it's going to get into your brain. And if you have the thought, "Oh, I want to do this," your brain's going to be like, "No, I will not do this in class." It's it's reinforcement. It's almost like a form of self hypnosis, and that's a key suggestion. That's a key thought that we're going to revisit a couple of times, um, because, and I'm going to get into some of my own personal experience. Now, I have a daily set of things that I do every day. When I first wake up in the morning, and that cat's upset. Um, and If I don't do these things, my day doesn't really start. I mean, I can do everything else that I would normally do in a day, but if I don't do these certain things at the beginning, my day doesn't feel right. I feel off. I feel, out of it. Like things just don't go right for me. Um, I wake up, I go downstairs, I have a cup of coffee. I generally don't do anything while I have my cup of coffee. I sit, I drink my coffee, I wake up, because I have a hard time sleeping. And so when I do fall asleep, waking back up is problematic for me. It's not that I like sleep super deeply or that it's hard to wake me up. It's just that I feel really like awful when I'm first waking up, just because of how bad my sleep is. I'm an insomniac. Um so I wake up, I go downstairs, I have my cup of coffee every day, cup of coffee. After I'm done with my coffee, I sit for just a few minutes, get ready for the day, go upstairs, take a shower, get dressed. Boom. Simple. If I don't do that every day, if I don't take that daily shower specifically every day, I know some people are like, "Oh, well, I don't need a shower every day." Like, I can skip a day here and there and not stink or be dirty or whatever, and that's fine. I Not to look down on anybody, but if I don't take that shower every day, it's less for cleanliness and more because that's a part of my day. It's something that I've done every day for most of my 40 years. Um, Obviously not as like a 1 year old and a 2 year old, but for as long as I've been able to clean myself and have been doing showers instead of bathing, um, that's been a fixture. And if I don't do that, my day doesn't really work the same. It's not. I don't feel right. I can't function as well as if I'd taken that shower every day. It's not like I do anything special. I don't have any special aromatic soaps. I don't have, aromatherapy or anything like that. I don't, do anything special. My showers are short, just like 5-10 minutes at most. In and out, boom, I'm done. I'm good to go. But if I don't do that, my day doesn't work. And that's ritual behavior. I've trained myself over a number of years that that's what I need, whether consciously or unconsciously, to have a complete day. And we all have little things like that. And that's at the heart of what a ritual really is. It's a type of reinforcement. It's a type of training the mind in a certain direction. And that's why when you get into like either religious groups or if you get into more spiritual, like other kinds of groups, the rituals seem a bit elaborate, a bit over the top. because it's designed for you to pay attention. It's designed to stick with you. The more kind of the more out of place they are, the more likely your brain's going to remember certain details. Like, oh man, you remember that thing that we did last night? We went out in the woods and we had that bonfire and we all ran around 12 times and we did this and we did this. And I'm just making stuff up. I'm not like naming anybody specific that does this specific pattern. You're going to remember that, as opposed to, oh yeah, I went to the service last night. We read from the book of whatever, not, to be flippant about it. And we had a nice time. We had a prayer, and that was it. And that works for a lot of people, and that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. Bible studies are very popular for people who are religious, and that's great. Rob himself is looking into getting into a religious studies kind of thing. Much like I have these, he's going to start doing one of his own that's a lot like this, only for the more religious oriented people, and that's cool. But you remember it more if something stands out. And it stands out if you all dress up in robes or in costumes or whatever, if you all chant something specifically, if you all make a motion, if you dance around the bonfire, if you do these various things, it sticks in your mind more. It's behavior reinforcement. It's self-hypnosis. It's self-suggestion. And that's when I say that, it comes off as maybe a negative thing, because you don't want to hypnotize yourself into things that are bad or things that are wrong, because we have mass media that does that. You watch the news and all these other things that are bombarded at you. It's a real thing, mass media suggestion. But you can use ritual behavior both to overcome that and to train your brain into healthier directions, or into more spiritual directions, or in whatever direction you want to go. Now, I've done some ritual things before. I have a space in the attic, which is going to sound like, oh, creepy. He's got a spot in his attic, or it's cleared away, and I have a bell, and I have a couple little like implements, like stones and whatnot. I don't really get into stones too much, and one of these days we're going to have a show about stones. We're probably going to have a guest who's more knowledgeable about stones than I am. But I've done research on things. Like, I've done research on, okay, if I want to think about this idea, I look in the past. What did ancient people believe about this idea? Did they believe a deity or a force was responsible for advancing this idea? What was associated with that deity? Did they do food? Did they do certain kinds of drink? Did they do certain stones? Whatever. And I'll collect those kind of things and use those as ways to reinforce the idea of what I'm going towards, and to train my brain, repetition. I've done ritual meals a couple of times where I've made a meal from scratch that has been based off of like a Greek and Roman festival or whatever. And don't mind me messing with my robots over here. So I've done that, and I've eaten them during my various, and I've only done this a few times. I've only done a couple of ritual things in my lifetime. And I don't dress up. I don't, I don't get big fires and get a bunch of people and do a bunch of chanting and things like that. It's not my thing. I don't like theatrics. I don't get into theatric things. I don't think my brain specifically needs that level of dramatic effect to do what I needed to do. But those are things that I have done, and sometimes they've helped move me towards whatever goal I was trying to accomplish, and sometimes they didn't. But a lot of it is do with how much you're really into it and how much you aren't. If you think that it's going to help, and you don't worry so much about, well, it doesn't seem to be working today, it doesn't seem to be working then, it must have been a failure. If you just feel like, okay, well, I'm going to roll with it and see how it goes, it kind of relaxes your brain into a more accepting zone. And things seem to flow a little bit better if you're more just like, hey, it is what it is. I did the thing. moving forward, because it's a confidence booster. It's working your will on the world around you, um, which, as we know, is kind of like a self-help thing. The universe will exist the way that you want it to exist for as long as you want it to exist. And that doesn't mean that you can just, with a thought, just like, oh, I'm going to have $1,000,000. It's just, if you can get your mind in the zone where I'm working towards this goal, I'm not deviating from it, but I'm not going to get frustrated about it. I'm not going to get obsessive about it. I'm just steadfast, move towards it, and eventually it'll happen. If you keep that belief in mind, 9 times out of 10, you'll accomplish what you mean to accomplish, because you're training yourself to stay focused. And as long as it's something that's realistic, you can realistically attain anything that you need out of life. And that's what ritual really is for. Some people, like movies and fantasy books and everything, they're always like, oh, they got these cults where they have these rituals trying to summon demons and things like that. And that's not going to happen. That's not going to. You can believe that it'll happen, and maybe for you, you may hallucinate and it will happen. Maybe even for a group of people, it's a mass hallucination, because those do happen. Um, but you can mess yourself up that way. You can give yourself a lot of negative issues if you believe these things. You can, if you believe that you're cursed, is a self-fulfilling prophecy, that kind of thing. Um, so if you get into rituals, ease into it. Ease into it. I mean, nothing's stopping you from being as elaborate as you want. Pardon me. Gosh, my nose is so itchy. But I don't know why. All the time when I do these shows, my nose gets itchy. Um, you can get as elaborate as you want if that helps, but you don't necessarily want to be silly with it, because then that kind of invalidates what you're trying to do, because then it becomes a joke. And you don't want to treat it like a joke, because then it's like saying the thing that you want is a joke, you know? Or maybe at the same time, maybe you need to disavow yourself of something. Maybe you have to tell yourself, whatever this thing is that I'm after, it's not realistic. It's not going to happen. I'm just being obsessive about it, and it's causing me harm. It's causing harm to my health, to my social health, my family, and all that kind of stuff. And you want to kind of get rid of those thoughts. You can do this over the top, ridiculous ritual to make it look like how ridiculous that thing is, and then your brain be like, nah, we don't need that. We don't need to do that. But what kind of things do people use for rituals? It helps to do some research. It helps to do some research. If you're going to get into ritual work, do some research on, and do the second guess it a little bit. Don't always go to the first, like, don't just put a query into your search engine and just be like, oh, what do I need for this kind of ritual? And then don't take just the first result and be like, perfect, got it, done. Look around a little bit, do some comparisons, because people have different ideas on what works and what doesn't. A lot of times in Wicca, people have a knife of some kind. Not that you're going to be using it on anything. They don't like stab themselves or stab actual animals or anything like that. It's just symbolic. A knife, a wand of some kind, or a rod, or a length of crystal, a candle, all these different things. It just all depends on what would help you get your mind in the right space to work your willpower on what you're doing. Going back to the idea of the Catholic Mass, the priest has that swinging smoke brazier thing when he goes up the aisle. You know, that's a ritual implement. Um, they have the robes, they have the hat, all that kind of stuff. So it's not something that's, if you get into ritual stuff, it's not like you're suddenly getting into, oh, I'm getting into cult activity, because that's part and parcel to what ritual stuff is. My daughter's popping out to go to the bathroom and to stop and listen to what I'm talking about. She likes to eavesdrop. And there's the dog coughing over there too. Um, so you want to look at your implements and think to yourself, how will this help me focus on what I'm trying to accomplish? Is there a phrase that I want to repeat? Is there something I want to say? Is there a speech I want to make? Do I want to chant it? Do I want to sing it? Some people sing, some people just play music, some people do bell tones, and some people do regular motions, some people dance. It all depends on just what it is you're trying to accomplish and what would help you personally get in the zone, really, is what it is. Um, so do your research, and you want to research things like, if you're going to use stones, ritual what the stones mean among different groups. Look into, I want to use quartz. What does quartz stand for? Does it stand for light or love or this or that? How does it attach to what I'm trying to accomplish? If you're going to have a meal, how do the foods make you feel about what you're doing? I mean, I wouldn't recommend going to McDonald's and getting double quarter pounder and using that as your ritual meal. Maybe it is. I mean, maybe it will work for you. I guess it just depends, but I wouldn't recommend it. So, yeah, do your research, look into it. If you're me, I would avoid trying to do things like summoning and whatnot. Not because I think it's actually going to work, but because your brain can be tricked. Your mind can be tricked by these things. And you can start thinking that, oh, I just summoned, there's a presence in my house now, and I've called this thing up, and it's malevolent and this like that. And if you believe that strongly enough, weird things will happen in your house. Bad things will happen in your life because your brain is causing a self-fulfilling prophecy. Also, don't have too much of this when you're doing these rituals. A lot of people will do like ritual wine and things. That's where communion is a Christian thing, where they do the wine is the blood of Christ and the bread wafers and things. But other churches will do grape juice instead of real actual wine. But you can use that, like alcohol and whatnot, to kind of loosen yourself up a little bit. Maybe certain incenses, maybe some other substances that are legal in your state and might not be legal here. Some people use mushrooms and things. And but you risk letting the substance do too much. You risk not being able to think critically anymore and losing the desired effect, or going in a direction that you don't want to go, especially if you're getting into psychedelics or anything like that. I know that there's, like, the Aborigines in Australia have had the walkabout, where you take the stuff and you see visions and hallucinations. And then I know that you have the peyote for Native Americans. Same thing, you go on a vision quest. That's under very controlled circumstances most of the time, by people who have spent their lives studying the effects of these things and know more or less what they're doing. I don't know if that's getting to be a lost art anymore. I wouldn't do that yourself unless you've been trained by a professional and you know exactly what you're doing, because you can lose too much of yourself in that. Your mind can break, really. If you have a whole bunch to drink and you get drunk, you're not going to be thinking clearly enough to do what you need to do to get the emotions right, to enforce, or even for your brain to take in the repetition and for the knowledge to sink in. I do usually have a little bit to drink just to kind of get a little bit relaxed and chilled out and kind of put me into a headspace, but not enough where I'm losing control of the situation. The same thing with stimulants. If you have, like, some people do coffee in their rituals. I've been known to do alcohol and coffee in the same ritual, but in small amounts, because each one will affect the brain differently. And it's all about retention. Um, Now, again, why would you do these kind of things? It's to improve both your personal willpower and to help your mind move you into a headspace where you can make your life better. Really, that's all there is to it. Um, One thing I used to do when I was in my mid 20s, and Rob has done this before too. Rob got into it not too long ago, like a couple years back, and it's a good practice. I still stand by it. I think it's a good practice. It's very much like the chalkboard thing or the flashcards. They're called affirmations. That's really what that is. It's an affirmation. When I was at work, I was in sales, and I wasn't at the time the best salesman. I got better many years later, and I got pretty darn good at it for what I did. I hated it. I don't like sales. I don't like selling people things, and I'm too honest as a salesperson. So I don't sell as much as somebody who's just a swindler. Oh well, I didn't want to swindle anybody. But they're called affirmations. And what I would do is if I had a goal that day, like if I was supposed to hit a certain dollar goal in sales or something like that, I wouldn't say I want to make money today, because then if you make a buck, you've made money that day. Not helpful. Instead, I would say I will make my sales goal today, because then that kept me in good graces with my employer. And if I make that minimum, then anything beyond that is pure profit for me. Anything from that point on is just good. As long as I make that minimum, everything else is better. And then my whole day is better, theoretically, right? I mean, you can still have crappy customers and whatnot, but no, tangents. I would write down that I will make my sales goal today 25 to 30 times on a little card. And I would keep that card in my pocket. And every so often, not constantly, not obsessively, because then that gets you like worrying about it. You start looking at that and then looking at your numbers, being like, "Oh, I'm not making my goal. This isn't working. Whatever." You write it down, you repeat it to yourself, put it in your pocket, and a couple times throughout the day, maybe on lunch, maybe on a break, pop it out, repeat it, put it back, and just see how your day goes. It's not going to work every single time, but it's putting your mind into a space where you're focused on that. And the more you can focus on that goal, the more you can unconsciously move towards that goal. And that's the trick. It's to move the unconscious into doing these things, or to getting you into thinking these things, rather than the conscious mind. Because if you think about these things consciously, a lot of times you start getting, again, obsessive. You start getting nervous. You start getting worried about them. And then it spoils everything. If you're worried, you're bringing yourself down. You're causing your body to be out of whack. And chances are you're not going to go to them. You want to train your unconscious to go after the goals for you, so your conscious mind can just deal with the day to day. And it's easier said than done. It's not something that everybody can take to, and it's not something that you can just do overnight and get right. And even today, I don't do the affirmations much anymore, because I don't really need to. Everything in my life right now is relatively simple, at least as far as my home life goes and everything like that. And I mean, I have a lot of radio show stuff to do, but I think I'm accomplishing that slowly, best I can. So, I don't know if I need a boost really, but maybe I do. Maybe I'm looking at it from the wrong way right now. Maybe by doing this show, I'm reminding myself that everybody could use a little bit of a push, and maybe my conscious efforts aren't doing the job, and I should get my subconscious and my unconscious moving at it. Maybe, because again, that's what the show is all about. It's for you to learn, for me to learn, for us to learn together, and to be better people. Um, but I don't do too much ritual stuff other than my daily thing. I've done a couple of things in the attic, like I said, because it's a quiet space, it's an empty space, it's a dry space, and but it's been quite a long time since I felt the need to do anything like that. And maybe that's just me neglecting it, or maybe it's just something that you don't need to do every day. You don't need to do a weekly ritual. I know people go to church every week, they do the weekly prayer and all that other kind of stuff. And if you need that, or if you feel that you need that, by all means. If it's help making you feel better, if it's helping being helpful in your life, by all means, keep it up. When it becomes not helpful is when you want to look at it objectively and think to yourself, is this still something that I want to do with my life right now? Because if it's not helping, it may not be actively hurting, but it's not moving you forward. It's keeping you standing in the same place. And I felt when I was going to churches that it was actively taking me backwards. And that's not saying that churches will do that. I'm not pointing a finger and be like, I'm not angry with them. I'm not going to protest at churches. I'm not part of the satanic temple going and doing the Anton LaVey trying to make the Catholics mad. It's not interest. It's not of interest to me. I'm just saying, for me personally, it didn't feel like I was going forward anymore. It felt like I was going backwards. And I made that decision when I was a lot younger. I was in my upper teens. So, things may have changed now, but I don't think so. I'm pretty confident in the decisions that I've made up till now as far as religion versus spirituality. So your results may vary, of course. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, of course, right? If it helps you, use it. If it doesn't, don't. If what I'm saying comes off to you as like, nah, bro, nah, that's not going to work for me. Ain't going to do that. Don't do it. No big deal. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I'm probably not even going to know. You don't even have to tell me. You just be like, whatever. You do what helps you. You choose the ritual behavior, if you decide to, that will benefit you the best. As long as you're not using it to harm other people, either consciously or unconsciously, then what's it matter? It's all about what helps you be more content with yourself as a person and more spiritually fulfilled. That's what ritual is. It's what ritual should be. It should never be, oh, we're 12 people and we're part of a cult and we're all trying to do this ritual to cause tsunamis or to change the climate or to end global warming or to whatever. That's not going to work. It's too grand. It's not going to work. You're just fooling yourself. So that's what I got as far as ritual work goes. Tappity, 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 tap. And if you or let me rephrase, if you have done ritual work in the past, I would love to hear about it. I would like to know how it went for you. You don't have to get super into detail if you don't want to. If it's some like hidden Scottish Rite kind of thing, whatever. But if it benefited you, let me know. I'd love to hear it. Or if eventually you stopped because you felt it was holding you back, or it was causing damage or causing harm or whatever, by all means, I'd love to hear your story. Leave me a comment on this video, either through the This Uncanny Earth official Facebook group or on YouTube, the This Uncanny Earth YouTube. And just let me know. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it because it's all about bringing yourself closer to your chosen spirituality and to feel spiritually fulfilled as a person. That's why Catholics do the Catholic Mass. It's supposed to help reinforce their relationship with the divine. Protestants have, like I said, the communion and things with the wine and then the wafer, and it's all supposed to help you get closer to where you feel you're going to be spiritually fulfilled. And that's what every one of these videos is about, honestly. That's what this entire series is about. It's about helping you become a better person through your chosen spirituality, or through a new one. Maybe you choose something different. Maybe you look at some of the things I've talked about and you decide, you know what, I'm going to try this thing that he suggested, and maybe it'll work for me, or you won't. Maybe it won't. Feel free to experiment, as long as you're not harming someone else, as long as you're not going out of your way or via unconscious action causing someone else pain or to lose their own spiritual way. We don't go out knocking on doors and trying to convert people and things like that. So, but that's where we're at. Next week, and I should have done it for this week, and I didn't think of it until the last minute. Next week, we're going to do another spirituality focus. And we're going to do one that's another one kind of like the spaghetti monster thing, where it might be a joke. But a lot of people don't believe it. A lot of people believe it is something substantial. And there's quite a large number of folks in the UK that subscribe to it. We're going to be doing the real life Jedi religion. It exists. It actually does. The Star Wars Jedi religion, it exists in real life. And there are people who are really passionate about it in a real way, not just based off of the franchises. The UK has the largest amount of people who identify as Jedi, as far as, if I remember what I've read. This cat is trying to claw his way out the window. We're going to look at that, and I probably should have done it again this week because a couple of days ago it was May 4th, and that's the Star Wars Day or whatever. But I'm a really grouchy old guy about that kind of stuff, and even though I'm an old school Star Wars fan, I don't. When people say May the 4th be with you, I get kind of like, whatever. I get really kind of like about the whole thing, and that's just me being a curmudgeon. The old man yells at cloud, So if you're into that, cool. I'm not judging you. I'm not. I'm really not. It sounds like I am, but I'm not. So I probably should have done this one on that this week, but I didn't want to because I was kind of like, I don't want to talk about Star Wars things. But I'm going to do that next week. So next Saturday will be, we're going to take a look at the real life Jedi religion, quote unquote, and see what kind of substance there is to it. Because I've never properly looked it up. So I'm going to. And you and I are going to take that journey together. So, in closing, anything else we got going on? Tomorrow is Sunday. There is nothing happening on Sunday, as far as I'm aware. On Monday, it's another episode of the podcast, Let's Talk About This. You can follow me on Spreaker, Spreaker. Look for Let's Talk About This on that platform. Or you can listen to it after the fact on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google, Amazon, Podcast Addict, etc., etc., etc. Like anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can listen to it then. And I think my topic is going to be games. Games in general, because you know how I do that show. I just do like pick a topic and talk about it. I'm going to be talking about board games, card games, video games, sports games, but not sports games too much because I think I'm going to do a full episode on sports, which is going to be a tough one for me because I don't like sports. Sports team. Hey, my sports team. So that'll be on Monday. Tuesday is another Twitch Tuesday where I will be on Twitch. Who knows when I'm going to play? I might go back into Dead Island 2. I just about finished currently with Jedi Survivor, which is great. Yeah, Rob, this Uncanny Earth himself is in the chat room, and we might do a guest spot. We might have him come on like he came on for anime. We might talk sports because he's a sports fan. He likes he likes the Saints, the footballs, and the Saints, football Saints. So I might have him come on. I used to be a Cleveland Indians fan when I was a kid, but I don't care much about baseball anymore. I don't know. I'm just not into sports. I'm not a sports guy. But so that'll be Tuesday, Twitch Tuesday. Rob has things going on leading up to the weekend where he's going to be doing a presentation. So He may or may not be streaming this week. If you are, feel free to say so in the chat that you're going to be streaming. Yeah, it is. I was thinking that in my head as you said that. I'm going to put that up there because he's the religious. I'm the more spiritual. He's the religious, and he's a Saints fan. That's just how it works sometimes. Um, and he says he will be streaming various times throughout the week. So look for him on Twitch, Uncanny Alchemist, right? Uncanny Alchemist. Whereas mine is DMG RGN. Both of those Twitch channels, good content, good stuff. So that's Tuesday. Wednesday is a free day. Thursday is another episode of the Uncanny Spirits Club. And then Friday is once again another episode of This Uncanny Earth at this same time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's the whole week. That's everything. So thank you for being here with me. I hope you guys learned a little bit. And if you have any questions about ritual stuff, or you just want to have a little roundtable discussion about it, you know where to find me. Till then, be well. If I can get the button here, it's finicky.